Welcome back to Sunday Nation. It is Black History, the first edition of this program in Black History Month. Every February, we reflect on the significant contributions of black people in America and around the world. And joining me is the eminent photographer, a long-time noted photographer here in Detroit, around the country, whose work has appeared in many magazines and newspapers around the country, the one and only Dale Rich. Dale, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I have worked with you in the past,
Yes.
but you have covered so many events throughout your career as a photographer. I want to talk about that though, because I think it's important to reflect on the contributions of African American photographers and the events that they've captured over the years.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's something that I've done most of my life, in my adult life at least, because when I had a class in American history, 1865 to present at George Washington University. And it was a wonderful class, but one day the professor said, next week when you come back, I'm going to ask the question. And the question would be, could you name anyone other than George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington who did anything significant in America? I'm the only black person in the class. Nobody else answered. I tried very hard, but during those times in the 70s, we had just started having black history classes and things like that. Yeah. So it was a complete zero for me.
Right.
I tried, but it just didn't work. And at that point, I just didn't come back to school. I didn't to that class. Mm-hmm. And I should have failed because I didn't take the final, and I didn't take the midterm, and he gave me a D. He passed me. He didn't fail me. Because he knew what he had done. Right. Because I wasn't a failing student.
Right.
So that's what started me. So I was thinking maybe, because I did have photographic skills.
Right.
And in my early days, I used to see the civil rights photos.
Right.
And I wish I could have done something like that.
Yeah.
And so part of my training I'm a pressman, a printer.
Right.
For newspapers. Part of that is putting photos on paper. So we learned a little bit about photography. So I translated that information into just regular still cameras. And so I started taking pictures. And I think probably the first, if you want to talk about civil rights or black activism, was in the early 70s, maybe 73, African Liberation Day March. Everybody went to Washington, and our congressman, can't think of his name right now, it's been a long time, he spoke, Congressman Charles Diggs.
Was it Charles Diggs? That's right,
yeah. So I have a picture of Charles Diggs at the podium, and there's a guy photographing him. But we marched all around the city of Washington, and then we landed at the Capitol, the mall.
Right.
And so that's one of the oldest political kind of photographs
that you took.
That I took.
But you've also since then, I mean, you have covered so much. You've taken photos. Hurricane Katrina, you've been at events at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, you've covered the late Congressman John Conyers.
Oh, well, of course. I was his personal photographer at one time, drove him around. So I have maybe a couple hundred good photos of him. And
but how important was that for you?
How important was it for me?
Yeah, in terms of just being able to cover Congressman Conyers, for that lengthy period of a time and being his personal photographer?
Well, it's just me doing what I thought I had to do from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I didn't say, well, I want to photograph, be a photographer for anyone.
Right.
I wanted to cover, I wanted to do the same thing that I saw on TV and I saw in the newspapers, in the magazines. And so I was kind of shocked. I had just retired, and so I went to his office, and I showed him a couple of things that I had, and maybe 3 or 4 days later, he gave me a call. And so then I said, well, I think I would like to do a documentary on you. And so that's one of the oldest political kind of photographs that I took. And part of that is just me doing what I thought I had to do from the beginning. And I didn't say, well, I want to photograph, be a photographer for anyone. I wanted to cover, I wanted to do the same thing that I saw on TV and I saw in the newspapers, and so I went to his office, and I showed him a couple of things that I had, and maybe 3 or 4 days later, he gave me a call. And so then I said, well, I think I would like to do a documentary on you. kept getting calls.
Right.
And from there, it was on and on and on and on.
You know, one of the things, though, that I've noticed in terms of the work that you've been able to do, I think it also reminds us of the importance of having African-American photographers to capture events, because they have a certain, they capture events that are significant to our communities that sometimes will be overlooked by their white counterparts.
Okay. Well, see, now I call that the black eye.
Yeah.
And you see, I see black people. I understand because I am.
That's right.
Yeah. And so there's an article about me talking about me in the black eye.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very, very necessary because I have grown up as a black person,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand things and see things perhaps different than other people who have not had the same experiences
Right.
that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think that my view should be in part of a story, so they won't be just the left or the middle or whatever,
The right.
but the truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know.
You know, it's interesting you said that, because that is always the argument that is made, that, you know, black photographers capture the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They tell the story that is sometimes not told about our experiences.
Right. Yeah, well, I can add my feelings in it. See?
Right. Mm-hmm.
See, because I have lived in two Americas, pre-Brown versus Board of Education and post-Brown versus.
Yeah.
And so I remember all that stuff, and I didn't go in one, but the white-only bathroom when I was in the South. And so I have something that other people, well, not just me, but
Right.
other people just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't
yeah.
know the effects of their behavior.
Let's talk about the next generation, though. Those who are watching this interview here, and young African Americans, young black kids who would be interested, who are perhaps interested in photography, what would you tell them about the significance of having black photographers, especially in this space now we call the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I specialize in signs, and I'm going to do a exhibit called Signs of the Times. So I capture these signs of people and hear what they're saying, because that's, rather than have someone give a class, here's some people that say Black Lives Matter, let's say. Okay, well, I have maybe 15, 20, maybe more than that, of Caucasians who say the same thing when Black Lives Matters.
Right.
Now, I've been in marches for black people that you had more white people than blacks.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but see, this is what people are saying. Is people who not have the opportunity to get the microphone,
Right.
or be able to write it in paper or whatever,
Right.
and they're expressing what they feel.
Right.
And so I try to tell people what people are saying by doing signs. And because they take time to either do it themselves or pay for somebody or whatever. So it's in order for us to know what's going on. So some people say, well, nothing happening, blah, 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 blah. But that's not true. And so people are coming out saying, not just reporters and the television news, but actual people, everyday folks are saying, this is how I feel about this issue. You know, I have probably 15, 20 signs from the George Floyd March where white people say, I can't breathe. And then the other ones will say, Black Lives Matter. And so they're saying what they feel.
So you capture those images. You know, we're of course we're told that photography tells a story, and so black photographers continue to tell the story of the black experience.
All right. Well, black photographers, as I try to tell people what's there, but you have to add photography and reading. You see?
Yeah.
See, so that process is you just can't look at a picture and stop. You need to go and find out more about this.
That's true. That is true. That is true. So you had an exhibit at the library some time back. The Detroit Public Library did an exhibit of you a while back. Do you have anything coming up? Do you have any kind of an exhibit that people...
I have been talking about one. I talked with them the other day.
Okay.
And I'm interested in, see, this year, I'm a member of the ASALA, which is Association for the Study of African Life and History. And this year our theme is resistance. So I was thinking of doing an exhibit on resistance.
And this is going to be all photos of
it would be
people
photos
that demonstrate
yeah, but recent things, because the real resistors, Nat Turner, Denmark, BC, those are the real resistors.
That's the yes. That's the founding history of resistance. But you want to do something in the modern.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be an interest. I mean, because I feel like the last 8-10 years has been about resistance for us.
Yes, it has.
I mean, the entire Black Lives Matter movement is a resistance movement.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that would be important. Well, your final comments, though, because this is Black history and we're reflecting on contributions of Black people. And any comment for those who are watching and about Black photography?
Yes. I think that, first of all,
Right, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. I spent my whole life taking pictures. So it's very, very important. It's next to breathing for me. All right. Now, I think people should look at the pictures, because photographers are seeing things and they're capturing things. One picture is worth 1,000 words, they say.
That's right.
So I try to do things that I'm talking to people who are talking to me with the signs and the expressions and whatever they do, the protest and all that, because otherwise you could sit in and watch cartoons on TV and never know what's going on in our lives.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Nation. Of course, the eminent photographer here, Dale Rich, talking to us about the importance of certainly his own contributions to Black life, taking photos and the stories those photos have told over the years. Stay with us right after.